So I want to share about a couple similar topics. I want to start with a blessing that I read from the Lubavitcher Rebbe of Crown Heights, who lived from, I believe, 1902 or 1904 till 1994. And there was a book compiled of his letters. And people feel when they open a letter or they open a page, there was many books, volumes, but there was also a specific book called In Good Hands, I believe. And when you open it to the one that you do with an intention of like what you're looking to address openly, there was a message I got, the bracha, a blessing, or an affirmation or a guidance. It said, "This is especially relevant to yourself, whose literary skills equip you to influence many people in this direction, and the reward of those who gladden people's hearts is well known." And in parentheses it says, you go straight to Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, in other words, paradise, heaven. You can't even put it into words. In other words, also, the idea is that God is my boss. So, the woman, I was in someone's house when we did this, and her name is Rivka, Levy, her maiden name is Losh. I asked her for help once, and she was very cruel toward me. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that I recommend her as a teacher to everyone, but I would say that, it depends. For what she offered me, the teachings, they were very good. However, when it came to like person to person, I felt there was a lack. So I would say, as an example, when you have someone who is and I don't want to pigeonhole her. I mean, there's plenty of times she probably is generous and kind with people, like emotionally generous, spiritually generous, or we could support each other. However, there are times you catch someone off guard or in the wrong moment, or someone else just took advantage of them, right? Or they're in scarcity, they're in lack. But I will say that I felt, I have to put that out there to say I don't know if she's actually practicing her teaching. So first of all, we start with joyful thoughts. Then we go into joyful words. Then we go into joyful actions. And if you think about it, joyful thoughts, you don't even have to move. You could shut your eyes. Joyful speech, you start to have muscles. Joyful words moving even from all the way over here, right? All over your upper chest, your neck, your shoulders even. When you speak, it uses all these muscles. If you want to feel the vibration, put your hand on even where your shoulder meets your neck, and you'll feel yourself when you're talking. It could go through all of here. To joyful actions, which involves the body and the movement. And if you're dancing your whole body, right? Or doing something that's exciting you or something that makes you happy. God doesn't want extremes in our offerings. For example, it says God didn't want honey, or, which we know could be too sweet, or yeast, which could be too savory. And rather, there's this a middle place. I want to talk about it. Like, we go from the honey, which is that too sweet side, and then we go to the yeast that's too savory. But we could apply this idea of the spectrum to something else, which is sensitivity. So highly wounded means sugars throw us off, right? And when we're self-bonded, they can't throw us off. We're connected. So there's this middle place where we're willing to feel. We could be highly sensitive, we're willing to feel. And from that place, we can actually return to a personal reality experience. That this is my reality. And that's the self-bonding. Keep on coming back to our own reality. On the one side, we could have rage. On the other side, we could have fear. And somewhere in the middle, we have our womb, which is to pause, to regulate. It's like a self-care. This is our place of generating, creating our own personal reality. And it reminds me, there was this class I went to by Rabbi Kaykov from the Young Israel in Flatbush, where he said Paro, the king of Egypt, who enslaved the Jewish people after they had such a positive impact on him, specifically the Jew Yosef, that he made him second to king because he saved his whole kingdom and pretty much all the surrounding places, because during a famine he knew what to do, and he was able to interpret his dreams. And it's just like he forgot, and he bit the hand that fed him, and all the children and all the relatives and everyone became persecuted and oppressed. So one of the ways he made the life harsh was by separating the man and the woman. He prevented the male and the female bonding and assigned jobs that were counter to essence too, in order to the opposites. Like for a man, he gave certain work that you would say is like for the woman, which is like, and the reason I bring this up is because if you look right now at the artificial genders happening in the world and how men are trying to do women's jobs, makeup artists, models, other things like that, versus the women who are trying to do men's jobs like construction and certain types of business owners. I'm giving it obviously gender biased examples. That's the point of what I'm saying here, that there's an invisible paro that's trying to drag apart. And then we could see what's happening is the men have to be so gentle. They're like gentlemen, and they're not allowed to be masculine the way that they are. The women are making up for it. So then we have women who are trying to be men and men trying to be women. And instead of a man just being more inclusive, and that's, a man is allowed to be that way, he has to become a woman. And then instead of a woman being allowed to be that way, she has to become a man. So there's this really big rift that's starting to happen. And how do the borders go across? Because God said, be fruitful and multiply. You cannot multiply with two women or two men. And there's this idea of zroa, which is the chesed, is the egg, and gevura, which is the seed. The seed is the zroa, and this represents chesed, like kindness, sharing. And then you have the egg, which is gevura, it represents taking in, and that's like birth. And also they had the two kinds of sacrifices at the offerings. One was chagiga, and that was like the holiday or the festival or the positive one. And one was the chorban, which was the commemoration of the destruction of the temple. So there's a few others, like when we think of the Passover Seder, which is the time when the Jews were freed from Egypt. We have the maror, you have to eat at least 28 grams. This is related to the teferet, which is the torso in the Kabbalah tree of life, Eitz Chaim, and the heart, which pumps blood to the body. The immature single man is the first level. He just gives out, right? Then there's the idea of the chazera, which is not just just shooting out, like spring all over the place. Rather, he's same 28 grams, but he's the now yesod, which is like the pelvis. He's like a mature married man who's has a female counterpart, and he could have yichud, which is unity. He could have circuitry, and the shechina, the divine feminine, or the divine indwelling, or the divine presence can dwell amongst them. And another, this is called segula, like a good merit, like a good sign, like do this and then something good could come from it. It's like a mysterious way that good things can happen if we do this, or just a segula means a signal. Kind of sounds like it, right? So it's a good signal to have Yirah Shamayim, which is awe of heaven. And when you have a chametz-free home, which means there's no chametz on Passover, it says in the Torah you cannot have leavening, like the breads, pastas, cookies, anything made out of leaven, like flour with leaven, and it's a protection for the whole year. And the matzah, which you have to have 2 times 28 grams, is related to the protection. So, in other words, let's say if you clean your house for chametz completely, right? You do what the Torah says, you will be worthy of awe of heaven. Imagine, that's the blessing, that's the goodness that you could get. And if you could be in awe of heaven, you would live a very different life. You wouldn't have fear of humans. You wouldn't have idol worship, chasing money or possessions or validation or more and more personal power, which just could feel like there's never enough. And if you want to have protection all year long, you eat 2 times 28 grams of matzah. If you want to have parnasa, which means livelihood, financial abundance, income, you eat afikomen before chatzos, which on the first night is like around 1 a.m., something like that. Could be 12:30 to 1 a.m. depending on the year, the time, when it shows up in the season, the date, if there's a leap year or not. And also, like, as the years between the leap years, they're a little different. So that afikomen is a little bit of the matzah from during the Seder, the order that we have on the Passover special meal and special arrangements, rituals, and all that. There's a part of it called afikomen. It's like the dessert. It represents the offering of the lamb that was done in Egypt before they left. And finally, Elijah's cup, Elijah the prophet. So at the table, we each individuals drink 4 cups of wine or grape juice. We put Elijah's cup as our 5th cup. It's the sign of Elijah, who's going to be the harbinger of the Mashiach, or there's many different interesting interpretations of what it might look like. But basically, he's tasked with bringing the children and the parents together, with uniting, with making peace, with helping the world become, for the Messianic age, a whole new era so that it could be sustainable, the Messianic age. And he is related to the times of when he did a lot of miracles showing that God is the true God, and he had ravens that were feeding him when he was hiding from an evil queen and king, and there was a lot of, he's a miraculous person, and it said that he ascended to heaven alive, and he can come visit people at different times. For example, every circumcision, he said to God, they don't, what are they doing? Or he made some comment, and God said, you're going to go to every circumcision. So there's always usually a seat at the location of the circumcision festival, festivities. And also he comes to the Seder, so we put a cup for him. And now, I want to back up a little and say, how do we get back to that joyful sort of presence? And starting from the top, we have to remember Yetzer Tov is goodwill. So we want to be used by our goodwill. So we have to find a meditation in what we're doing, no matter what, how close or how far it is to the end goal. And it represents the Shekhinah, the goodwill, because it's like the oneness of the will to good, the will of good. And there's this inner bonding, this inner being, this bonded soul inside with a deep back realm, hidden and mysterious. And it includes our familiar and the innocent, which is our projections, and also the feeling modest enough to share on the topics that we do know well, and also learning enough because of feeling open to others. Since when we rely on our own discernment to see if it is someone who has a judgment we would trust to rely on, we know that we can do the hard work and leave the rest up to God. And finally, we have to tell ourselves, and as we're representing the Shekhinah, the feminine or the divine presence of God, the indwelling, the hovering, godliness is, you're doing a great job, thank you, you're amazing. We tell ourselves, we tell others, we live that way. And this Yetzer Tov topic was inspired by Eliezer Kokin. We talked about it. So I'll stop there and wish you an amazing Shabbos, lovely, majestic Shabbos, where may we all have enough energy for our work that we have to do, for catching up with everything, all our reading, and mercy, and just recognizing we're doing enough, we're doing a great job, and the whole world is grateful for us, and we're amazing. And may everyone be safe and cool during this heat wave that's going on, and protected, and feel nourished, and feel comfortable, and feel productive, and feel like a success. Okay, and have good company. Bye-bye.